Hi, and thank you for watching my video. My name is Megan Cahill Asenza, and I'm an undergraduate student at Stony Brook University studying English and writing. I went on an expedition to Boston to get up close and learn more about Phillis Wheatley, the first African-American poet. I first visited Massachusetts Historical Society and Boston's Old South Meeting House. Both these places I learned a lot while I conducted interviews there. I hope you enjoy my video, and you will be seeing me again real soon.
Peter Drummey. I'm the librarian of the Massachusetts Historical Society. The Wheatley family I think it's a really interesting story because they play such an important role in her life. Educate her, introduce her, in some respects support her efforts to reach a wider audience. It's hard to think, at least for her early writing, would only have come to the attention of the public through the activities of members of the Wheatley family. But at some point, she seems to outstrip this connection. But I think that they stand in the reflected celebrity of Phillis Wheatley. It's the world turned upside down, where they're known, this established, prosperous Boston family are known through their connection with the young black poet, rather than, the other way around, which is how the story must have started. I think her most revealing writing about her relationship with Susanna Wheatley is in a letter that she writes. She's thinking on paper, but she seems to be trying to puzzle out what this relationship is. She's her mistress, that is, we would use an uglier word, owner. But is she her parent at the same time? If she's going to school with the daughter in the household, that doesn't sound like she's described as being a servant. She's described as being a child who is purchased by to be a servant in the household. But is she a companion to the daughter? I mean, it's hard for us to say what that is, but she's being educated in a way that's remarkable even for a girl in New England, let alone enslaved child. The poetry she had been exposed to as a child was the poetry of an earlier English age, so that in fact, living here at the edge of empire in New England, she was reading and looking at poetical sources from a previous generation. There are so many classical allusions in her writing, both her poetry especially, but also in the few letters from her that survive, that she has a good grounding in the higher learning of the time. She's incredibly precocious in the sense that her first published poem is from 1767, and we don't know exactly how old she was when she came to America, but that would make her, say, 14. A minister here in Boston, the founder of the Massachusetts Historical Society, wrote in his diary, retrospectively, he wrote this in 1773, when her poems were published. He wrote in an end page of a diary volume in 1773, a poem that he credited, he said she would have then been 11. One of the things about Phillis Wheatley and religion is everywhere in her writing, both her personal letters and in her poetry, but it's at a time of enormous religious enthusiasm, what's called the Second Great Awakening here the Great Awakening in its later phases here in Massachusetts and New England, where people like George Whitefield is here preaching. It's hard not to connect that with Methodism, this rise of a religion, religious belief that is a more direct personal connection with God. And that infuses that idea of a personal, emotional religious experience, infuses Phillis Wheatley's poetry.
My name is Erica Lindemood, and I am the Education Director at Old South Meeting House, Boston. So Old South Meeting House is a Puritan meeting house that was built in 1729. By the time Phillis Wheatley came to Boston in 1761 and then started to attend church here, the community was no longer calling themselves Puritans, they were Congregationalists. The Wheatley family attended a different church, which was a bit farther from their house. We think it's likely that they arranged for Phillis to come to this church because it was a relatively short walk from their home, and she suffered from various ailments, including asthma. It was a law that everybody had to attend a church on Sunday. People would, I imagine it happened at each church that attendance was taken, and so that was not only for free people, but it was for enslaved people as well. So once you joined one or the other community, you were expected to be there. As an enslaved person, likely would have been sitting in the second balcony. She learned the English language largely through listening to and hearing biblical verse. So I guess I'm kind of interested in the just little hints at her place in this community, in this religious community, in this building, this sort of sense of belonging that she seemed to have in this physical community and kind of the spiritual community here that comes out in the poems that she wrote.
There's a paradox of the American Revolution that while certainly we think of it as a political and military revolution, and it was, and the English colonies of North America becoming independent, it didn't benefit everyone equally. And if it's not the cause of the circumstance Phillis Wheatley, Phillis Peters found herself in at the end of her life, she was not lifted up by the revolution in the way, in the popular imagination, the way people are thought to have been or should have been.
In addition, when Susanna Wheatley passed away, Phillis Wheatley's life spiraled downward. She married a man, John Peters, who was a drifter and really could not support her, and she died in severe poverty.
What if she had never come back to America? What if she hadn't come back to Massachusetts from England? I think it's reasonable to say that how she was welcomed and applauded in England in the 1770s when she went to, and the trip where her poems were published there, you can sort of imagine her staying on in England and becoming, at least having the opportunity to publish more. That is, we know that she wrote more poems. Some are published separately. We have some manuscript evidence of others, but she had assembled essentially a second volume of poetry that not only wasn't published, but has disappeared.
Phillis Wheatley published her first book of poetry titled Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral, in London, 1773. However, as Mr. Drumming has alluded, Phillis Wheatley faced significant amount of obstacles, such as being an African American, being a woman, and also living in a time period when the American Revolutionary War was taking place. Few people know of Phillis Wheatley today, and I think her story is quite remarkable and a story that needs to be shared. Thank you.